It was a damp October evening in 2025 when an email arrived at 221B, Baker Street. Sherlock Holmes glanced at his phone and raised one eyebrow. "Watson," he said, "a certain Mr. Robert Crowmere of Crowmere Abbey requests our immediate presence. He mentions vampires." I looked up from my laptop. "Vampires in Cheshire?" Holmes read the message aloud. "Strange figures at windows. Puncture wounds on necks. One guest found unconscious. Business ruined by rumors of the old Hun-depressed revenant. My family also affected. Desperate." Holmes smiled with quiet certainty. Supernatural nonsense, of course. Yet the man is no fool. He owns one of the finest restored monastic estates in England. Something real is afoot. The next morning we drove north in Holmes's electric Jaguar. Crowmere Abbey rose from the mist like a Gothic dream, pale stone and pointed arches reflected in a silver mirror. Once a Cistercian monastery, it had become a luxury hotel and private residence. Robert Crowmere met us in the Great Hall. He was broad-shouldered, middle-aged, and plainly exhausted. "It started 3 weeks ago," he said. "Guests in the East Wing saw a pale figure at their windows. Some woke with tiny wounds on the neck and a feeling of weakness. Last week a young woman was found on the lawn, barely conscious. The tabloids are calling it the return of the vampire priest." "And your family?" Holmes asked. Crowmere hesitated. "My second wife, Isabella, has a 6-month-old son. Twice she was found near the cradle with blood on her lips. She refused to explain. My older son Jack has been difficult lately. He walks with a limp from an old injury. Isabella struck him once when she caught him near the nursery." Holmes said nothing. "Show me the nursery, and then your collection of historic weapons." The nursery was bright and careful, with a cot beneath leaded windows. Holmes studied the baby's neck through a lens. "2 tiny punctures," he murmured. "Not teeth." On the wall stood a display case of medieval arrows, a blowpipe, and several small darts from an old South American collection. Holmes asked whether any were missing. Crowmere admitted that a few arrows had vanished over the years. For 20 minutes Holmes examined the room, the windows, the mirror, and every marking on the floor. He said little, but his eyes were alive with calculation. That evening he interviewed the staff and studied the CCTV footage. One camera had been malfunctioning for weeks. Then he asked to speak privately with Isabella. She was pale, beautiful, and frightened. Holmes showed her a note. She read it, then nodded with tears in her eyes. By nightfall we were all gathered in the drawing room, Crowmere, Isabella, Jack, and the baby's nurse, Mrs. Mason. Holmes stood by the window, calm as ever. "There is no vampire," he said. "There never was." The figure at the windows was Jack, dressed in a dark cloak and theatrical fangs. He wished to frighten guests away from the Abbey and turn his father's attention back to himself. Crowmere stared at his son. Jack's expression hardened. "The wounds on the guests were made with small darts from the old collection," Holmes continued. "They were dipped in a mild sedative bought online. Enough to alarm, not to kill." He turned to Isabella. "The real danger was here. Jack attacked the baby with the same darts, but with a stronger dose. You found him twice and chose not to speak, because the truth would destroy the family. So you sucked the poison from the wounds. Your lips were bloodied because you were trying to save your son." Isabella's voice trembled as she admitted it. She had struck Jack when she caught him the second time. Holmes then explained the disabled camera, the careless attack on the guest, and the reason the dog had seemed oddly lethargic. Jack had grown bolder, then reckless. Jack said nothing. In the glass of the darkened window, his face looked exactly as Holmes had first described it, jealous, bitter, and dangerous. Crowmere looked broken. Holmes placed a hand on his shoulder. The law will be severe, but perhaps not beyond mercy. A strict boarding school, or time away from the Abbey, may still save the boy. We left Crowmere Abbey the next morning under a pale sun. The tabloids would soon move on. The vampire had been nothing more than a jealous son, a desperate mother, and an old collection of poisoned darts,